Good morning. Welcome to Cedars Unitarian Universalist Church. My name is Brian Baker, and I'm the worship associate for our virtual service today, alongside our special guest, Reverend Bruce Bodie, Minister Emeritus of Quimper Unitarian Universalist Church in Port Townsend. Before we start, let's pause to acknowledge that members of our congregation occupy the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of Coast Salish people. The homelands of the Suquamish, Duwamish, Clallam, and Chimicum were ceded under duress through the Point Elliott and Point No Point treaties. We are grateful guests on these lands and affirm indigenous sovereignty both past and present. This acknowledgement does not substitute for the need to build authentic relationships with modern-day members of these tribes and to learn about their living culture and history. Our faith community is sustained by the generosity of our members. Your contribution will nourish the spiritual growth of our community through weekly worship and ongoing programs that cultivate connection, belonging, sharing, and caring. Included in the video description and displayed on the screen is information to make a contribution to Cedars through our PayPal account. Please take time either now or later in the service to make a contribution to Cedars. Your gifts are greatly appreciated. Cedars is committed to being a welcoming and inclusive community. In all the beauty of languages, cultures, and skin tones that come together in your uniqueness, we welcome you. In all the ways you experience and express gender and in the beauty of whom and how you love, we welcome you. With all the religious and ethical traditions that inform your spiritual life, we welcome you. You are invited to join us today and always with an open mind, a loving heart, and willing hands. In this moment, each of us is whole and complete just as we are. Nothing is missing. How could it be otherwise? Yet, we get so caught up in judgment and self-criticism, good or bad, right or wrong. I want this, I don't want that. We look outward beyond ourselves to fulfill craving for wholeness, while churning thoughts of past and future obscure what is right before us. Who are we beyond our standards and preferences, our habits of mind? How do we embrace the fullness of each moment with what it presents? Its joy, grief, love, pain, awe, and shame. How can we accept the perfection of this very moment and advance our journey in freedom toward who we are becoming? To grapple with these existential questions is the gift of being human. Millennia ago, Prince Siddhartha was deeply moved by the suffering he witnessed in humanity. That we are born, get sick, grow old, and die. Siddhartha left the comforts and luxuries of the palace life for a spiritual quest that ultimately resulted in his awakening as the Buddha. In his first discourse after awakening, the Buddha spoke of the Four Noble Truths. In Buddhism Without Beliefs, Stephen Batchelor presents these in a way that deeply resonates with me. Anguish is to be understood. The origin of anguish is to be let go of. The cessation of anguish is to be realized. The path to liberation is to be cultivated. These are not propositions to believe, but challenges to act. To understand anguish is to know it as transient, contingent, and without intrinsic meaning, rather than something that's fixed, separate, and independent of our perception. To let go of the source of anguish is not to reject it, but to let it be fully itself. This manifests in the overused platitude, "It is what it is," but with acceptance and resolve rather than resignation. The cessation of anguish is to experience an opening. It is a break in the clouds, a lifting fog, a meadow in the dark forest, finding again the path that was lost. To cultivate the path is to tend and care for it. It is not a destination, but an ongoing journey. If left to itself, it will become obscured by weedy habits of mind. Things are rarely black and white. Life is complicated and confusing with its many shades of gray. If we can cultivate clarity of mind, if we can become grounded in wholeness, here and now, we can open a brief moment that reveals what the mind obscures to find the middle way and walk the path to liberation. I'll close with these words from poet Natalie Diaz from her collection, Post-Colonial Love Poem. We must go beyond to a place where we have never been the center, where there is no center, beyond, toward what does not need us, yet makes us. I dedicate the lighting of the chalice that each of us may find our own path to liberation.
As we come together to worship, we remind ourselves to treat everybody kindly because we are one family, to take good care of the earth because it is our home, and to live lives full of love and goodness because that is how we will all become the best that we can be.
Greetings to you from my home study here in Port Townsend, Washington. As Brian said a couple of minutes ago, I'm Bruce Bodie, Minister Emeritus of the Quimper Unitarian Universalist Fellowship in Port Townsend, from which I retired in June of 2018 after serving there for 14 years. Checking my records, I found that during these 14 years, I've spoken at Cedars on 4 previous occasions. I was scheduled to do so again last March before the pandemic shut things down, and now as things are beginning to lift again, I'm pleased to be able to be invited to speak again. For the call to worship for this service, I'd like to draw on a prayer by the Unitarian minister and author, the Reverend Robert Levens. He lived from 1878 to 1961. These words: "Holy and beautiful is the custom which brings us together in the presence of the Most High, to face our ideals, to remember our loved ones in absence, to give thanks, to make confession, to offer forgiveness, to be enlightened, and to be strengthened. Through this quiet hour breathes the worship of ages, the cathedral music of history. 3 unseen guests attend: faith, hope, and love. Let all our hearts prepare them place."
We worship with open hearts, nurture a learning spirit, serve justice with compassion, and love without judgment. We worship with open hearts, nurture a learning spirit, serve justice with compassion, and love without judgment. We worship with open hearts, nurture a learning spirit, serve justice with compassion, and love without judgment.
I want to tell you a story today from the ancient Buddhist tradition, reworked by a contemporary author named Rafe Martin. And the story is called The Brave Little Parrot. And this story is about a parrot who lived a long, long, long time ago, when gods were still on their clouds in the sky. And the brave little parrot was a drab gray bird who loved to flit in and out of the tops of the trees in the forest that she called home. And one day, as she was flying in and out of the trees, she saw a thunderstorm coming. And as she watched, the thunder and the lightning hit the forest, and suddenly her home, the forest, was on fire. And all of her friends, the animals, raced out of the forest down to the river for protection. But not all of them could get out in time. And then there were the trees, who could not move at all. And the brave little parrot thought, I must do something to try to save my home. And she swooped down to the water, and she said to her fellow animals, her friends, let us all take a little bit of water and go and put it on the fire and try to put it out to save the forest. But the other animals were too afraid. The forest fire was burning, and it was very, very hot. But the brave little parrot had to do something. And so she swooped down to the water, and she collected a few drops on her wings, and she flew back to the forest, and she dropped the water into the fire. And she did this again and again and again. And her wings became singed, and the smoke was overwhelming. But the brave little parrot continued to fly down to the water, pick up a few drops, and fly back to the forest fire. The fire kept raging bigger and bigger and bigger. And one of the gods, who was floating above in the clouds, happened to look down and see the fire and see the parrot trying desperately to put it out. And he said something to the other gods, and the other gods looked down and they laughed. And they said, "Look at that ridiculous little parrot. She doesn't have a chance of putting out that enormous fire. Why is she even trying?" But the god who had originally seen the parrot was moved, and so he turned into a golden eagle, and he flew down next to the parrot. And he said, "Little parrot, you are going to die if you continue to do this. The fire is too big, and you are too small. There is nothing you can do. Save yourself." And the brave little parrot looked at him, and she said, "I do not need your advice. I need your help." And she flew back to the river again, and she dipped her wings in more water to try to put out the fire. Well, the god was very moved by what he had heard. He was so moved by the parrot's bravery that he began to cry. And because he was a god, when he began to cry, his tears trickled down like rain, like magic rain, and everywhere they fell, the fire went out, and grass immediately began to grow again. And the leaves on the trees turned green again because of his tears. And a tear landed on the little brave parrot, and suddenly her wings were transformed from drab gray to a multicolored hue of different shades. And all of the other animals came back into the forest, and they all lived happily ever after, because the little brave parrot never gave up. And that is my story.
The theme for my sermon message this morning is based on a song titled "All Will Be Well" by the singer-songwriter Meg Barnhouse, who is a very talented Unitarian Universalist minister. She's currently serving as the senior minister of the First Unitarian Universalist Church in Austin, Texas. I heard Meg and her partner Kaya Hartwell sing this song a little over 5 years ago at our annual Fall Ministerial Professional Days meeting, which was held at a retreat center near Tacoma. The words of the refrain of this song are "All will be well, and all will be well, all manner of things will be well." These words come from the Christian mystic Julian of Norwich, who Thomas Merton called the greatest of English mystics, and who is revered with feast days in Roman Catholic, Anglican, and Lutheran traditions. Julian's dates are thought to be 1342 to 1416, which was a time in England and in Europe in general when plague epidemics were rampant. And it's believed, too, that Julian, at about age 30, fell victim to the plague. As the story goes, upon her deathbed, her parish priest came to administer the last rites of the Catholic Church, holding, as part of the ritual, a crucifix in the air above the foot of her bed. Julian later reported she was losing her sight and felt physically numb, but as she gazed on the crucifix, she saw the figure of Jesus begin to bleed. And then, over the next several hours, she had a series of 16 visions of the Christ. And by the time these visions ended, she had recovered her health. During these visions, Julian was overwhelmed by an experience of divine love and a vision of God as Father Protector, Mother, Creator, and Lover. The sweet words that were revealed to Julian were, "I am the power and goodness of fatherhood. I am the wisdom and lovingness of motherhood. I am the light and grace, which is all blessed love. And to the question, if God is love, then why is this such a troubled world and so full of suffering? To that question, Julian heard her God saying, you will not be overcome. God did not say you will not be troubled, but God said you will not be overcome. It was also in the context of this question that Julian heard the words for which he is best known, words which some of you may recall from T.S. Eliot's famous poem, Little Gidding, all shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of thing shall be well. We're going to listen now to Meg Barnhouse and her partner Kaya Hartwood sing this song, which is addressed to Julian of Norwich. The video, which includes the printed words of the song, were created by Marty Kuzmierski.
I said, Julian, you are holy, you are holding my hand. And Julian, you are holy, you are holding my hand. She said, all will be well, all will be well, all manner of things will be well. I said, Julian, do you not know about sorrow? And Julian, do you not know about pain? And I said, Julian, do you not know about hunger? And Julian, do you not know about shame? But she said, all will be well, all will be well, all manner of things will be well. I said, Julian, do you not know about loneliness? And Julian, do you not know about disease? And I said, Julian, do you not know about cruelty? I said, Julian, it's too much, it brought me to my knees. But she said, all will be well, all will be well, all manner of things will be well. She said, no one does not know about sorrow, and no one does not know about pain. She said, no one does not know about hunger, and no one does not know about shame. And she said, all will be well, all will be well, all manner of things will be well. She said, no one does not know about loneliness, and no one does not know about disease. And she said, no one does not know about cruelty. She said, I know, it's too much, it brought me to my knees, where I heard, all will be well, all will be well, all manner of things will be well. I said, Julian, you are holy, you are holding my hand. And Julian, you are holy, you are holding my hand. She said, all will be well, all will be well, all manner of things will be well. And she said, baby girl, do you not know about friends? And she said, baby girl, do you not know about the spirit? She said, baby girl, do you not know it's only love that never ends? And so all will be well, all will be well, all manner of things will be well. And so all will be well, all will be well, all manner of things will be well.
In my sermon message by briefly walking with you through the text of the song we just heard, and then I'll provide some deeper analysis of the issue I see being brought forward in this song. In this song, Meg Barnhouse, the composer and lyricist, is involved in a kind of interior dialogue that addresses what is perhaps the most basic existential question of our human reality, namely, given life's often horrific conditions, is it worth the living? The composer Meg Barnhouse addresses herself to this question through a conversation with the well-known words of a revered figure, the 14th century Christian mystic, St. Julian of Norwich. And addressing Julian, she says, Julian, you are holy. You are holding my hand. But Julian, I have a serious question for you, something I truly don't understand, for how can you say that all will be well and all will be well, all manner of things will be well? Are you naive? Are you in denial? Are you being disingenuous? For Julian, don't you know about sorrow? And don't you know about pain? And don't you know about hunger? And don't you know about shame? And Julian, don't you know about loneliness? And don't you know about disease? And don't you know about cruelty? Julian, what am I missing here? Because these things have brought me to my knees. So that's the question that Meg Barnhouse brings to this revered Catholic English saint from hundreds of years ago. And now the author's inner Julian gets a chance to answer. And she replies, actually, Meg, I do know about all the things you are crying out about. I do know about sorrow, and I do know about pain, and I do know about hunger, and I do know about shame, and I do know about loneliness, and I do know about disease, and I do know about cruelty. And you know, dear Meg, these things also brought me to my knees. And it was there on my knees that I heard the words, all will be well, not when things were actually going well, but in the midst of my despair and in my greatest weakness. It was there, dear Meg, it was there, baby girl, where I heard these words. And it was there where I learned the deeper meaning of tenderness and the larger value of friendship and the creative activity of the Spirit and the eternal nature of love. These words, dear Meg, all will be well, and all will be well, and all manner of things will be well. These words were given to me in my darkest hour. And they came to me from a place beyond myself, from a place beyond my present understanding and awareness. So this is what I see going on in the text of this song. The composer is in an interior dialogue with herself about the nature of our reality through the words of this revered and saintly historical figure. Now, when Meg Barnhouse introduced this song at the ministerial conference I attended, to which I referred earlier, She said that when she first heard these words, all will be well and all will be well, all manner of things will be well, she thought they were ridiculous. And she got into an argument with the saintly Julian of Norwich. How could she possibly say such a thing? But then Meg Barnhouse said, in learning a little bit more about Julian's life and her suffering, she paid more attention. So let's look now a bit further into this question and answer that this song puts before us, because this question is, as I said, about as basic as it gets. Given the conditions of life as we become aware of them, can we affirm life? Can we find it to be good and worth the living? We and all creatures come into life with a natural affirmation of it. Every living thing wants to live and develop itself and become what it potentially can become. The threefold urge, as philosopher Alfred North White has said, to live well, to live better. With us humans, however, there comes into play an evaluative function that is born out of our evolutionary history and the development of the neocortex in the forefront of our brain, so that now we have the capacity to stand apart from life and to judge it. The world that we at first so naturally and instinctively embraced is now questioned, judged, and often found to be wanting. This is the fruit that we have picked from that tree of the knowledge of good and evil in that mythological garden of paradise. That mythological story symbolizes our separation from the instinctive life and our natural affirmation of it. Because now, to our ego minds, all is not well. Life to our ego minds is split, divided, and polarized, necessarily so. For we see clearly how this life in this world should be better than it is. Oh, so very, very much better than it is. Thus, the natural, instinctive affirmation that we felt for life has become a question, an issue that is before us ever and always. So that now, if we are to affirm life in the world, it has to be done spiritually and consciously, not just naturally and instinctively. And the question is, will we affirm life and find it good in the midst of the conditions as we experience them and as they are cataloged in that song: sorrow, pain, hunger, shame, loneliness, disease, cruelty, and other similar vexing concerns? Can we say and believe, along with Julian of Norwich, that all will be well and all will be well, all manner of thing will be well? What would it take? What does it take on your part to say, to believe, and to feel that? Well, at that same ministerial conference where I heard this song, I talked with my roommate, Mark Gallagher, who for many years was the minister of our congregation, a Unitarian Universalist congregation in Vancouver, Washington. And Mark and I talked about the meaning of this song and the realization in it that all will be well. And Mark said three things that I thought were very insightful. First, he said that it's under deep distress that we are more likely to have this breakthrough realization that all is well, rather than in the normal course of things. And why? Because in the normal course of our everyday lives, we're always trying to adjust things, always trying to fix things and make them better. But when we are brought to our knees and forced to surrender our will, The judgments of our ego are knocked out, and a deeper, larger, and more primal source of life and being is then made more available to us. That first of all. And then secondly, my colleague said, somewhat surprisingly to me, that this breakthrough realization is no great achievement. It only seems to be a great achievement because we don't typically live with the realization that all is well. We live instead with the sense that all is not well. And then thirdly, and most interestingly to me, my colleague said, it's not that all things will be well, but that they are already well. It's just that we don't see it. Julian's words, he said, are really saying all is well. All manner of things are already well. It's not some future state we're talking about, but it's a present state of consciousness and awareness that is always available to us and out of which we can always live. In his essay Circles, Ralph Waldo Emerson writes, "In nature, every moment is new. The past is always swallowed up and forgotten. The coming only is sacred. Nothing is secure but life, transition, the energizing spirit." And the question is, can we connect with that ever-renewing power of nature that is about us and within us? We're talking here about waking up to the ultimate power of being that has birthed us, the original source from which we have come and out of which we are always a part. We're talking here about that infinite, unoriginated, forward-pushing creative urge at the heart of all being, by whatever name we call it, the creativity that evolves and dissolves solar systems, galactic systems, and even whole universes, and which rolls through all things and all times. This is the anchor point, the anchor reality that our spirits must be tied to if we are to find our way in life. In terms of this anchor reality, we may bring to our minds the image of a ship on the horizontal surface of the sea with a vertical line attached to an anchor holding the ship in place. And so too we may think of ourselves as participating in two dimensions of reality, the horizontal and the vertical planes or dimensions of reality. Typically in our lives, we are more aware of participating in the finite and fluctuating horizontal time and space dimension of reality, the linear tick-tock of the clock, the everyday give and take of life, which, like the surface waves of the sea, rise and fall. This is life at the level of the ego, in which all things are divided between yes and no, good and bad, right and wrong, success and failure, winning and losing, health and sickness. But we also participate in the vertical dimension or plane of being, which, as I say, is like the vertical line to the anchor of a ship in the sea. This vertical dimension of our being participates beyond the time and space dimension in the transcendent, eternal, infinite dimension of reality. And to be awake to that dimension and to experience that dimension is to be connected to an anchor that can steady us in all kinds of weather, can hold us firm as our everyday fortunes and moods rise and fall. And what I understand Julian of Norwich to be saying, and Meg Barnhouse to be singing about, is that to the extent that we can mentally and spiritually identify and experience our connection to this ultimate source of being, then all will be well, and all is well. To connect at this transcendent level is to center, ground, and anchor yourself in a place from which you can live anything. An attachment to the deeper reality of being, where one may be cut, but not to the core, not to the center of one's being. For the center of one's individual being is ultimately the center of all being. And to that eternal center, always new, always creative, we ultimately belong. And let me conclude with what might seem a rather radical illustration of being tied to this vertical dimension of reality. This from mythologist and scholar of world religions, Joseph Campbell. Shortly before his death in 1987, in what I recall was his last public appearance, esophageal cancer was shortly to end his life, Joseph Campbell was present as part of a group of panelists that had entered into a somewhat hand-wringing, anxiety-producing discussion about the grave nuclear and environmental threats facing us, as well as all the other social, economic, and political problems that the world was facing then and, of course, still faces today. Finally, at one point, Campbell, perhaps a bit exasperated, blurted out, "Well, suppose the world blows up. So what? Just absolutely so what?" As you can imagine, his fellow panelists were a bit taken aback and went suddenly silent. It was a conversation stopper for sure. So what did Campbell mean by this statement? Certainly, Joseph Campbell did not want the world to blow up. He was deeply in love with the world and with life. But at the same time, he was free from it. Campbell had found an identity and a trust that could let go of all that he loved and lived for, an anchor and a connection that went beyond his individual destiny and that of his family and friends, an anchor that went beyond even the destiny of our civilization, our ecosystem, our earth, and even our universe. As I see it, Campbell had made a connection with and had put his faith in the creative power of all being, which transcended the boundaries of all that he presently loved and cared about. At bottom, he understood and experienced that he was part of an ongoing, eternal creative process that was infinite, that was eternal. Tat tvam asi, he would say, quoting the Hindus, that thou art, that thou art.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
I have appreciated the invitation to provide the sermon message for today's service and to reconnect with your congregation again, even under these virtual circumstances. I'd like to recognize and thank the several persons with whom I have worked in concert on today's service, Penny, Chris, Brian, Rhonda, and others who assisted behind the scenes. Their labor, love, care, and skill are much appreciated, and I thank them all. For our closing words of benediction, I thought I would draw on the words of Dr. Rebecca Parker that you just heard sung, these words: "There is a love holding me. There is a love holding all that I love. There is a love holding all. I rest in that love. There is a love holding us. There is a love holding all that we love. There is a love holding all. We rest in that love."